faces in here. If you become alive for justice and for a cause much bigger than yourself and work for that, and you begin to feel within your heart that passion that it's bigger than just you, then your life is, you're going to, as Khalil Gibran says, you're going to laugh all your laughter and cry all your tears, and you're going to really be alive. And being alive is learn to catch that wave, bigger than us, but we get to be part of something that is good and noble and right, and work for that. Rangers don't last long. They do their little flare, they disappear. And you no room for Lone Rangers. Lone Rangers on the side of the hill, you do it in community. Draws you into community. And that's a gift too, because you're working together. There is a group in Florida, and it's Floridians to End the Death Penalty in Florida. They have been working for over 25 years. And I want to encourage you to look them up and join them and start putting your efforts into that group.
And Amnesty International as well, which is a big part of what they do. They work around the world on injustices and human rights. This is one of the things we work on in the United States.
Yes.
This question is for you, actually. Now that you're working not only with the people on death row, but also with the victims' families, do you find that the victims' families have a problem with that? That you're counseling?
Of the 6 people I have actually accompanied to death, there's only one victim's family that allowed me to be part of that with them. All the rest, they put you on a seesaw, because if you're against the execution, because this is what everybody's telling them, that those who are really your friends are going to be for the execution. And so most often there's not that one-on-one, like Manuel Ortiz on death row now. The victim's family doesn't want to have anything to do with me. But what I always do is I reach out to them. The victims' families I do work with are all those that are not particular related to the people I'm taking on death row.
What do most of those victim families, what would they want? If they're not for the death penalty in the end, what do they want to see happen?
Well, they definitely want to see that the person never is on the streets again and can kill other people. Safety is, and a lot of them are just asking for help in their family, like real help for healing, therapy, the real help that you need to be a family. And I remember one time in Oklahoma City, this is just, Timothy McVeigh was executed in a relatively short period of time, 5 years after the Oklahoma City bombing, 168 people killed around. And Catholic Charities had called together rescue workers and victims' families in one afternoon to just talk about what do we do to heal. And I'll never forget this, because I was facilitating it and people getting up, like the rescue workers. One young woman got up. She had to go to a mental asylum for 6 months. She was so, these bodies of these innocent people broken and traumatized by carrying out so horrible. And then victims' family, well, I want to see Timothy McVeigh die, and others getting up and saying, what good is that going to do? And so it was coming to the end, and there was a guy sitting over to the right, kind of like on a bench thing, and he was opposite me. I was up at the podium. We get ready to end it, and he said, can I say something? And I mean, every eye in that room turned to that man that we hadn't even noticed sitting there. He said, look, could we not use that word closure anymore? He said, we lost our daughter in the bombing. And he said, there's not a night as a father I put my head on the pillow, I don't think of her. With God's grace, we're moving on. We're loving our children. But closure, you close a chapter in a book and you close on a house. You never close on a life. And that's such a futile thing to offer people, that it's going to be closure for us. And that was what he did.
One thing, just to supplement your question in terms of, as a human rights advocate, and this is important for any of us that are doing this, is that we can't allow people to, one of the geniuses of Sister Helen is that she broke out of the box of, I'm just on the side of the people who are going to get executed. that she tried to move across the aisle and talk to the people who are the families of the victims. And this is our society, and all these things always push us that we're either or. You know, we're either on the side of the prosecutor or we're side of the defendant. As a human rights activist, though, people have a right to be safe. We all have the right to be safe. Safe in order to protect somebody from being executed. We have to reject these false choices that people give us. They give it to you as a college student. So we're not talking about you have to give up your right to be safe. Well, look, you either can have a career or you can do something good. Or you can either be a mom or you can have a job. Or you can either have a lot of them to reject these false choices. And so human rights says everybody has a right to be safe. So we're not talking about whether we talk reducing the number of people in prison or stopping the death penalty or stopping the police from using certain kinds of weapons or closing Guantanamo or any of those things. We're not talking about giving up safe money or you can be happy. Whatever, it's our job to say we can find a better way to be safe. That our safety and your right to be safe and my right to be safe isn't advanced by this, and there are other things that we can do. So rejecting those false things that we're on a side, but society keeps pushing. Sister Helen will tell you, at every trial, if the defendant is on this side, and this side is the prosecutor, then on this side is always the victim's family, and their friends and that. And on that side are the people that are related to the defendant. And that happens when you go to the Court of Appeals and that, but it also happens when you go to the clemency board. The last thing where people are going, they have the decision of life or death at the very end. They tell you, if you're on the side of the guy who wants life, then you stay on this side. If you're on the victim side, then you're on that side. Well, what about people who are on both sides? There isn't a place for it. The room is split in two. And so part of our challenge to do this kind of work is to say we reject these splits in two. That there are ways that we can honor safety and we can also honor life and that stuff. Because I think ultimately, when you come to the death penalty, the way I look at it too, is it's not necessarily about this person who committed murder. Because maybe if there is that, then that person deserves it. But what does the death penalty say about us? What does it say about the United States? What does it say about our state? What does it say about our system? That we are going to accept murdering somebody who murdered somebody who murdered somebody. At some point it has to stop. And the world is going that way, our country is going that way, and if we're going that way, and we understand it, then let's stop now. You don't want to be the last person, don't want to be the last soldier to leave Afghanistan, don't want to be the last prosecutor that sends somebody to the death chamber. You don't want to be the last guard that drags a person down there when they're executed and the like. So if we know it's coming, and we know that's the way that it's going, and we say people can be safe, if we can say that, when's the last time that somebody really broke out of a secure prison any place in the United States? Prison stuff is big, big business. They make them pretty safe. So safety, we reject those false choices, and then we're going to go for all of the human rights.
That's actually the campaign in California. They know they spent, y'all are going to be blown out of the water by them. I don't know if Bill said it. They spent $4 billion for 13 executions. It's costing them to keep the death penalty in place $186 million a year. It's over the top. And the people are going, man, we're under crunch, budget crunch. And Martin Luther King used to say, the most moral document you ever look at is a budget. Are you using the resources of the state for life, help at-risk kids, to get health care for people, get affordable housing for people? Or using it on the machinery of death? And, Florida has a big death row. You've already gone down there. It's one of the big executing states. That things can change. And it's conscious, conscientious citizens waking up and beginning to act that changes things. And be in it for the long haul. Well, I'll be in it for a little while, but I don't like that. I'm going to change my major, go take some guitar lessons or something. To be in it. Catch the fire of it. I'll promise you, it's going to be the most exciting ride of your life. To get part of a wave, to catch a wave that is really big and noble. And it's going to take everything And you get tired, but it's a good tired. And you meet some of the best human beings in the world. Human rights activists are among the best I've met anywhere in the world, in the United States. Young people that get it and begin to work for justice. Yes?
Question for you. Has any of the people that you have worked with that are now facing death row or that have faced death row, have they ever asked you if they rather, that they know that they committed those crimes, that they rather be dead than spend the rest of their
None
lives
of them.
in prison?
Never. That is always a question of people looking at it from the outside. Well, look, I know if I was faced with the death penalty, rather than be in prison the rest of my life, I'd rather die. Well, you're looking at it from your armchair, having this interesting little conversation. Now, there are consensual executions. There are people, it's never been anybody I've been with. And hey, you know what? I don't know what kind of stress I could take day in and day out, and there are people who just give up their appeals and just say, take me, I want it to be over. And there are people who do that. But none of them I've ever been with. People want to live. And even when they know they've done something terrible, you want to help people take responsibility for what you've done. But then to live your end, and they all the people I've been in life, and to be responsible if they wanted to.
But then how do you know that you're not doing that person a favor by killing them? What comes after?
Who are we to decide that?
I don't know. We don't know. We never know that.
We'll never know it, but we do at least know our limits to be able to get on the inside of eternity, bud. That's it. God's finished with you. We're going to decide that for you. We do know our limits, and we don't know that. At least as a person, and decide for them. It's time for you to go into it and say that. Who am I to determine this?
Well, not to go against that.
No, go ahead.
That thing, but like I hope I'll never be in that situation.
Which one?
Like on death row. Or,
Well, you just stick with your studies now.
but I mean, life turns in very awkward ways, and
Yeah.
you still have to think about it. But in example, I lost a friend.
Was murder?
Suicide. After you left.
That's the worst in a way.
He was a Marine. PTSD. He shot a cop. Then he took his life. I guess he did it because he didn't want to spend his life in prison. That's my answer.
Did you say he was a Marine? Had he seen combat? Was he in
Yes.
Iraq?
So I guess he did it because he didn't want to end up in prison.
I understand now where your questions come. Sorry about you.
It almost seems like the death penalty we're committing a crime to penalize a crime. We're killing
To show killing is wrong.
to show killing is wrong. I mean, the logic there is not valid.
Bill, let's talk to him about Patrick's question, his son Patrick. Well, you're the one. All right. This is in Devon walking. Patrick was, about 7. He was going through his little monster phase. There's a monster under my bed. I can't go to sleep at night because the monster's going to get me. So Bill and Debbie who's sitting back there in the white, second wife, they take turns sitting with Patrick when it's time for him to go to sleep so they can keep the monster away. And so Bill is reading the case of Wayne Feldy, a Vietnam vet, the first one whose trial PTSD was used during his trial. And he got into a fight with a guy at a bar. This is after Vietnam. Gets into a fight with a guy at a bar, kills him, and he's on death row in Louisiana. Bill has the case in the last days trying to save Wayne Feldy's life. So he's sitting by Patrick's door. So, Dad, what you reading? Well, it's Wayne Feldy's case. said, well, what did he do? And Bill says, well, he did a real bad thing. He killed a person. He got in a fight in a bar. He killed a person. And so Patrick says, well, what are they going to do to him? He said, well, the state of Louisiana wants to execute him. And so and we have the case, and then we're trying to keep him from doing it. And Patrick said, well, Dad, if they kill him, then who's going to kill them for killing him? It's just like you're saying. The kid got it. Kids can get it. Or another kid one time was given to a talk, 7th and 8th graders in a gymnasium. You want to talk about a room full of Alka-Seltzers. Anyway, comes time for the questions. Here's this kid. Says stuff. They're killing the guy with the lethal injection thing, right? They're going to put the poison in? I said, right. He said, how come they put that alcohol on his arm before they put the needle in? I said, very good question. Because they want to have a very clean antiseptic death. Yes.
You mentioned the money there's possibilities to give the death penalty. Is it the actual executions or the giving of the inmates? And if the giving of the inmates wouldn't life in prison cause mistakes in them?
Good question. Sure seems like our good taxpayers' dollars, right? I'm not going to pay my taxpayers' dollars, give that guy 3 hots in the cot the rest of his life. What's a few little chemicals cost? Let's just get rid of them. And it sounds counterintuitive. Everything about the death penalty is more expensive, and prosecutors themselves will tell you it's a Cadillac of the criminal justice system. You have not just one trial, but 2, and one is just for sentencing. Then you got to build a special part of the prison. You got to have special personnel, and you have a complicated, convoluted appeal system where it goes on forever. And you're paying all this time. That's what's happened with California. They have 720 people on death row, but it takes on average 20 years for an execution. So they're tabulating it up and just seeing, we could put this money into community policing. We could be putting it into preventing violence, solving cold cases. They're just thinking of all the ways that you can use that money. But case at state after state after state, it always turns out it costs more. In Florida, it costs more too. The more you do, the more you look into it, you're going to see, what is it, about $2.3 million that you're paying for each execution that you get. Over against life imprisonment, generally $500,000, $600,000. And then people are allowed to work, at least to help pay for their board keep. On death row, you just sit in the cell, and you have these guards appointed to you. When you go to the death house, they have a guard watching you 24 hours a day to make sure you don't try to commit suicide and deprive the state of taking your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Thank you for your attention, and join me in thanking our speakers.
Thank you.